place Islanders, who build their lead to 6 points over the second place St. Louis Blues. Coming up is overtime, and our special guest, a man who has had plenty of attention the last couple of weeks and will receive more in the next several minutes. Mike Bossy of the Islanders, coming up in a moment.
And now overtime, taking you behind the hockey headlines. On overtime tonight, let's meet Dick Beddoes, sports director of CHCH-TV. George Gross, sports editor of the Toronto Sun. Hockey's hottest scorer, Mike Bossy of the Islanders. And here's your host, Dave Hodge.
Thank you, Brian. Mike, I'm not sure how original the questions are going to be as we talk about what you've been through in the last few weeks, and I'm sure the answers will be the same you've given to many people. But first of all, our appreciation for your presence in going over it once more for the benefit of our audience. Could you put into words the pressure and what it did to you, what the feeling was like in knowing that everybody wanted you to score in the stands and on your team and obviously within yourself, and just how it affected your game?
It was something special. It really was, to have opposing fans cheer for you when you're on the road. I mean, that was something that I've never experienced before. And you know, at home, the 2 games that we played at home, it was just you know, something that doesn't happen very often, and you know, it did happen that time, and you know, I had a lot of fun doing it, although the pressure was building. But I knew it was only 3 games. I knew I only had to go through something like that for 3 games, so it wasn't that bad.
But you have to do it all over again near the end of the season if you're near 76, and right now you're ahead by 5 goals of Phil Esposito's pace. That's something you worry about later?
Well, exactly. I'm not really thinking of it right now. You know, I don't want to put that kind of pressure on myself or on the team again till it's really necessary.
That may indeed, though, be the record that's important, 76 and 76. I don't mean to denigrate the feat of 50 and 50, but let's put the whole thing in some sort of perspective. We're playing in a era, Michael, of diluted hockey. The fact is, you're not playing against goaltenders like Sawchuk and the guys you've heard about. The guys in the halcyon era of hockey, when guys really played well, and Richard did not either. I think we should make the point, it's not made often enough, that Richard played against some Mickey Mouse players in 44 and 45. The men in the NHL were fighting a war. And the fact is, he was playing against goaltenders who should not have been up here, guys who would give up 15 goals a night. I don't mean to put the record down. You had to do what you did in your time. But I want to make the point strongly that I think 76 and 76 is far more important than 50 and 50, given no guys scored 50 when the league was a hell of a league. That's the point.
Well, definitely. I think that, you know, I think that to the eyes of many people, I think that 76 is a lot more important than the 50 and 50 was. It was really a challenge for myself. I set out to do that this year as a challenge to myself, as a motivator. You know, and that was one of the reasons why it was very important to me.
Also, Dick, I think that although the league might be diluted, or that's the impression many people have, I think the fact is that today's hockey players are faster, they shoot a lot more, there isn't as much hitting as in previous years when the name of the game was hit him at the blue line or hit him in front of the net. There's not much hitting going on, but I think the players are faster, they shoot better, they have wrist shots, they have slap shots, they get rebounds, they're quick, and Mike is probably...
Look, he's doing what Michael's
fastest trigger man since Camille Henry.
This is a discussion that many have had many times, and I don't know that it's ever resolved. One of the classier remarks I heard came from Mike himself, if I may. He thought, I heard you quoted, and so I'm sure it's accurate, that one of the important things about this challenge, as he put it, was the opportunity to bring Maurice Richard's name back into the headlines and to have people focus on what he did, which is that was a nice way of putting it. There are some who think that the Rocket may not have quite paid the same respects to you. Was there, in that he wasn't there and had been invited, and...
Well, you know, when I did set out to do this, when I did get to 48 and 47, I sort of made it a point. You know, I knew I was going to profit from the publicity that I was going to get, and I just wanted to share it. I wanted to share it a bit with the Rocket, because especially in the States, because I don't think enough people know about him.
Yeah, here we care a little bit about what he meant. I want to make a point about Richard. He was some hockey player when the war was over, and let's make that point too. He never got 50 and 50 again. I think, though, him not showing up to see you tie the record last weekend is very typical of Richard. He might not have wanted you to break it. Rocket was not the nicest of guys. Let's make that point again. We tend to think everybody becomes lovable finally, but Rocket still has some fires working at him, and I'm not sure he would have wanted that record broken. Sure, he should have showed up, but we're not always graceful, as we found out with the Ron Ellis incident here this week.
Exactly.
Michael, I wonder how psychologically this may affect you, perhaps this season. Trottier, he could have scored, I would say, about 4 or 5 goals, a couple of them in the empty net, when he slipped a puck to you. This may or may not cost him the scoring title. How would you feel, and how would he feel at the end of the season?
Well, I think that Brian and I are the best friends, and as much as it was my goal at the start of the season, he sort of said to himself that he was going to help me as much as he could. If Brian would have been going for the same kind of record or something like that, I would have, done the same for him, and he knows that. I don't have to say that, but...
Seems to me you were putting a puck on John Tonelli's stick some time ago when they got 4 goals against
it's, myself going for the 50 and 50 was, you don't get a chance like that too often. Just like John Tonelli, I'm sure won't get very many more chances to get 5 goals in 5 games. Right. So it was very important to me that night to help him as much as I could and show him that I cared, and show him that I wanted him to do something that, not very many people have done in this.
Will you see the empty net in Detroit in your dreams forever? Because if you get the empty net goal in Detroit, then of course you wind up with 51, I guess, in 50, and that was really the feat.
Well, the record in my eyes was the fastest 50 goals. It wasn't really getting 51 in 50. I really didn't care. I could have taken a shot in Long Island after I got the 50th, but I passed it over to Brian. As soon as I got that 50, I sort of, felt that I'd done my job, and I could relax.
Was it important to get number 51 very quickly in that next game against Buffalo, even though you didn't win it? I mean, you don't want to be stalled at 50. My goodness.
It just happened.
56 seconds into the game, I think it's what was
16 seconds.
16 seconds.
Yeah. Also, were you ever thinking of Phil Esposito's 53 goals in 50 games, the last 50 games of the season?
I never really heard of it, to tell you the truth, until the next day when I picked up a paper and someone had mentioned that he had got 53 goals at one time during 50 games, but I'd never known that before.
Were you checking the summaries every day to see what Charlie Simmer was doing?
I was I was most of the time. If I had a chance to, I watched the game in Boston that he played that afternoon, and when there were 6 seconds left and he only had 2 goals, I was sort of breathing easier, because I think everybody's a little selfish. I wanted to get that by myself, and it was hurting a little more was that he had 49 and I still was at 48, so I was saying, I might end up that after all I said, I won't even have the most goals after 50 games.
When you were a kid growing up in Quebec, you were a child after Rocket had pretty well quit. I guess that's right. He quit in 1960.
Yeah,
so
I was born in 57. I was 3 years old.
But did his name mean something to you, to kids growing up in your generation in Quebec? Was the Richard name? It was carried on by Henry, but what about Rocket?
Well, his name was always something that was sort of put on a pedestal. It was always, he was an inspiration to hockey. He was always, in my eyes, a player that, that not very many people played like him. He had an extreme amount of determination from the blue line to the net. And, although that I think that we differ a lot in styles, a lot of people are beginning to tell me that, they're comparing me to Maurice Richard. And the way that I see him, I don't think at all that we're the same kind of
think any old-timer would say that that's not the case. He was a flaming, you're right, competitor from the blue line in. Not nearly as finesse as you can be, but flaming coming in.
Well, exactly.
Carry defenseman on his back.
I saw a picture in a book that Glenn Resch had today, and his eyes were just looked like he had fire in his eyes.
We used to say, Michael, the Rocket's red glare. That's what we'd say about him. That baleful look in his eye. You had that.
In a playoff game, in overtime, you could watch him when he decided, this is it, I'm going to finish it, and he hopped over the boards, and the next thing it was in the back of the net.
Try this for a comparison. I have to decide right now that this is it. This segment is over. We'll let Mike go back and get a shower and say congratulations again, and a most hearty thank you for
Really, thanks.
being with us.
We appreciate it.
We'll be back in a moment.